So we're going to show you how to change the colour of a dashboard. This particular dashboard has come from an accident car, and we need to change the colour of this dashboard right here to the colour of this dashboard right here. So it's only the bottom half of the dashboard that we're going to be doing, because this particular one has had an accident clearly, and obviously it ruins the dash when that happens because it splits all the top of the dash. So we need to recolour the black one there so that it's black and ivory like this dashboard is here. And we just need to do all the ivory bits. So there's not a lot to do on it, but we're going to show you how to do that. So the first stage is that we've obviously got to go through and do. Obviously all these sections here are ivory. This is black, and this big section here is black. So all this is ivory that you see here that we're pointing at. And what we need to do is to go through, and this section here is ivory. We need to go through and do the prep stages first of all. Once we've done all the prep stages, we can then give it a light go over with alcohol, with a red Scotch pad, just to give us a bit of a key. Now this isn't leather, this is vinyl. Now all of the LRC paints adhere to vinyl, absolutely no problems whatsoever. We do have a vinyl adhesion promoter if you wanted to have extra adhesion, but with this being on a dashboard, you know, you've not got things like feet or bums sat on it or kicking it or scrubbing it. So obviously the adhesion promoter is not necessary because it will bond sufficiently to not come off anyway. So I mean, that's the beauty of it. I mean, we've only invented the adhesion promoter in the last couple of years. So as you can tell, you know, for 30 odd years in the industry, we've never needed it previously because it does bond definitely well. But because there's a lot more leather vinyl seats coming out, we decided to invent a vinyl adhesion so that if your friction of movement was driving, that will obviously stop that from coming off and give you a much harder wearing surface than what you would have had previously. So the next stage is going to be to carry out the prepping. So we're going to use the LRC leather prep, the LRC 15 leather prep, and we're just going to simply spray onto a cloth. You can clean this down with a vinyl cleaner first of all if you wished, and then go over with your prep. But to be fair, that would be a pointless exercise using a vinyl cleaner to clean it. And it's a bit like people saying to you, you've got to clean your leather first before you do any prep work and colour it. Why would you want to prep clean leather? You just prep it. So it's a waste of your money. That's companies extracting money from you totally unnecessarily. That's what we're not here to do. We will only sell you the products that you actually need for the job, which is going to be leather prep to go over it with a cloth. Simply spray on. You can spray onto the vinyl because you're not going to damage it, or spray onto the cloth and just wipe over the surface. Just make sure that you literally prep the whole thing. So we're going to do the whole dashboard all the way over. So it's just got to get it prepped all the way over. And then we will use the red Scotch pad, as I say, to go over it. So as I say, you can spray it on again. There's no harm in doing that. And just give that a real good wipe over. Get into all the sort of little nooks and crannies to make sure that because we're going to have to colour around these edges as well. Even though they're not actually seen, you need to colour those around, because when things like speakers and things go in, you know, you don't want anything shining through black coming through the side of the speaker. So just make sure that that goes all the way around, you know, and get that cleaned up very, very thoroughly everywhere that you see. You know, everywhere, because we've got to come right down here as well, up against the matte black dash. So we just got to get all that cleaned around, and then we're going to go down to this other end. Again, same process, real good wipe down with the leather prep. The leather prep, being a solvent base, is actually really good product, but we've got a twist coming to our leather prep very, very shortly, which is going to enable us to do many other things that we couldn't possibly do previously. And that will all be revealed very, very shortly. It's actually an industry breakthrough, to be fair. It's the first in the world. We're the first company in the world to actually do what we've done with our leather prep. And I'm sure all others will be following suit. All I will say is we like to look after our environment, and that is something we are extremely passionate about, is looking after the environment. And that's something we've achieved with leather prep. So just give it a good wipe down. Then we are going to get, as I say, a red Scotch pad, and I'm going to get some alcohol cleaner, and we're going to go over it with the alcohol cleaner and the Scotch and the red Scotch pad. So you're just going to put the alcohol cleaner onto your Scotch pad, like so. Obviously it's going to go through, so you just put a little bit on there. You can put it onto the actual item and just gently rub that over. You're not going over this very, very rigorously. We're just gently rubbing it over. So it's going to make it go a sort of funny colour, because it's going to desanitize and everything else. It's going to go a rather sort of milky colour probably, where you're sort of giving it a good clean. So just give it a good wipe over with the leather prep, with the alcohol cleaner, sorry, after you've done the leather prep stages, and that's all we've got to do. So as you can see, it's really, deeply sanitizing that now, and just make sure you get it all, you're going everywhere with it. The purpose of this is to remove all the grease and grime and any silicone that's on the surface. I mean, we had a car in the other week, a couple of seats in the other day that we've done that were just absolutely silicone city. I've never known so much silicone on a pair of seats in my life. It was, even after deep cleaning with leather prep and alcohol 4 times on all the plastic trims, we had a hell of a job to actually remove that. So just give it a real good sanitize over, as I say, with the alcohol once you've prepped it. And then once you've done that, we can then go on to the actual colouring stages, and we'll be able to get this all coloured up. But just give it a real good wipe over. Make sure it's thoroughly done, because you just definitely don't want any grease and grime. And get right into all these areas, and just at the back here, because we need to get just at the back here with colour, so that when the trim facing and the dashboard and all the sort of dials area go in, you can't see the black shining through here. So you need to make sure you get all these areas very, very thoroughly to ensure that that you don't get any contrast in black, colour showing through from the black dashboard. But give it a really good go, and then just let that naturally dry, and we're then ready to do the colouring stages. So as you can see, we're now at the next stages. We've started masking up, and I've still got a little bit of masking up to do. We don't need to worry about masking any of these sort of things up, because obviously they're not seen anyway. So I mean, it's the same, with all these areas here. They're not seen once all this dash goes in and the steering column goes into here and stuff. You can't see all these things behind here, and the same here. You can't see any of this, but so it's pointless. But we will put a little bit of cream on here. But you can't really see it, ivory, whatever you want to call it. So I've just got to finish off masking up around these edges here, just so I can cover those up, so that it's just done, and we're just going to do that each end, so that that's done at each end of the unit. But I hope you like my random props to prop up my dashboard, and then at the back here we've got items to stop it falling off. So yeah, so it's a very ingenious idea using gallons of paint. So let's just get this finished off masking up. So just going to do small sections at a time. Doesn't have to be precise, as I say, because none of this can be seen, but obviously, less excess going on these sides is going to be better, really. So I just want to get a little bit on there, because I need to come and colour all of this right the way down, whereas the other bits I pointed out, we're not getting anywhere near those to colour them, so it's pointless sort of worrying about that. So that's all we need to do there. Then the same the other end. And again, it's just a matter of, doesn't matter how good or poor the masking is along here, because as I say, it can't be seen, but this end's a bit different to the other end, because the other end's got like the panel that goes down. So that's all we really need to do there with that end. Obviously this is going to be, we're going to do the majority of this with a sponge. So just want it a little bit further on here, so that you're not getting, when you're sponging away, it's not flicking off onto here, so that then you haven't got to worry about cleaning those little areas up. So, and then I probably, just do the same the other end as well, and just again a little bit further along here, and that's it really. So that's all we need to really worry about on there. And end of my tape. So yeah, so that's it. So that's as far as masking is concerned. So obviously next stages is going to be getting almost like a primer coat put in there. We've obviously got our colour pre-mixed and scanned to match the other dashboard, the faulty dashboard. But what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to put like a light grey on, obviously with light grey with the way it's been made, with like blacks and whites and yellow oxides and things like that originally. We're going to put that on there because it's going to give us a nice sort of base. As you know, we've gone and alcohol wiped everything down, and now we're just going to put a base layer on of the light grey. It doesn't matter how this goes on, because this is just going to be like a primer. So this is just going to be wiped in like so. It's just to build a little bit of colour on there, so that if it gets scuffed, the first thing people are going to see, rather than the sort of black colour, they're actually going to see the light grey come through first of all. You've got to make sure you get this into all of the little nooks and crannies all the way through. So it's just a matter of going over, doing this over the whole thing and getting all this covered up. And this is just, as I say, this is just going to be like a primer coat for it. So it's a bit like applying a primer for your body, you know, your car body. It's just a matter of getting a bit of colour on there. It doesn't matter how it looks. It's just getting that wiped in is the key to this. Obviously, this is what is fixing underneath. But trim and stuff, we'll need to get right in those, because if there's a piece of panel trim goes in there, you might just see a reflection of the colour there shining through. Or down the sides of little areas. Make sure you get it into all the little nooks and crannies everywhere. We'll probably put a little bit of masking tape on there just so you can see, because we're quite close to it. Even though you can't see any of this plastic, I might just put a piece of masking tape on there just so that it's covered, just for speed really, more than anything. So it's just getting that all wiped in, and then once that's all wiped in, we can then start to get the proper colour on there and get that all sorted out. So just going, obviously doing all the little back areas you can sort of see behind there. And going through doing the whole process. I've got to do the inside of the bottom of the, you can see we've gone all the way down here on the inside, so we've got all that covered. I've got to do around the steering column area yet, the internal parts of the steering column, which I'm going to do now, which is all these parts coming down here. So we've got to make sure that we do all those as well. So we're just going to wipe those down like so, and just make sure the colour is wiped in there all the way down, so that when a client is adjusting their steering wheel column, they're not going to see that this dashboard was all black originally, because it's all going to be nicely colour coded back up for the client, and they're not going to see any difference at all. So we've just got this little end part to do here, and we've got all this side panel to do as well. And there's just a little tiny drop that comes through there. So this is, you know, as I say, the purpose of this is a primer, and it's just so that if it gets scuffed, it shows this through, which is going to be very similar to the colour that we've got. It's just a bit lighter than the actual genuine colour itself. So it'll just look a little bit more like it's designed to be that way, rather than like somebody's, you know, replaced the dashboard in the car. So we're on to the next stage. So make sure you get into all the little areas as best as you can, and just keep colouring and putting this primer coat in so that it's coloured and covered over. Obviously all these sections here that I'm putting on now, it's not actually seen because there's panels going there. This would obviously be like a big glove box area, I would imagine. So none of that is actually going to be seen, but I'm just putting a coat of this light grey on there anyway to act as a primer. Can't see any of that, so I'm not too bothered about there. So that's absolutely fine. And then the final little bit, you can come across here, because this is actually painted grey on the actual car, and just wipe a little bit of colour in there, so that when the glove box goes in, it can't really be seen. Because I'm just going to colour those little sections when I actually do this, just so it's coloured just for the sake of it, even though none of it is visible. But I'm just going to do it in case you get like light shadow and stuff like that. So that will be all of the primer that will have gone on. And then the next stage is going to be the actual colour, once this is all dried over with the hairdryer. So we would then dry that with the hairdryer, and then obviously we are ready to apply the actual full colour itself. So that's your primer coat. Right then guys, so we've got all our, what we call our primer coat on here now. So that's just wiped all that primer coat, and then we've obviously gone through and dried all that with the hairdryer. So now we've got our pre-mix colour, sponge again, and we're going to sponge the first coat on here. We'll see how this goes. It may need just the one coat, it may need a couple of coats, but we'll just see how this goes. So obviously this has already been pre-scanned for on the damaged dashboard, and we're now going to put the paint on. You'll see when we get a little bit further along, we're going to work really fast on the rest of it. So it's pointless sort of showing you the whole thing all the way through. So, you know, we'll just do this section in slow motion, so to speak, in normal speed. And then we're just literally stippling the paint on. And as you can see, the difference there with that going on, looking absolutely fantastic. So the colour's changing quite rapidly now to the new colour that's obviously been scanned from the dashboard over there, the damaged dashboard. So we don't have to worry too much about areas that are on the underside, because obviously these areas aren't really seen down here. So it's not too much of a worry. It's more these upper areas that we have to really consider and worry about. So we're just going to carry on stippling that through the whole thing. And just get it all stippled on. There are little areas where we can probably touch up with brushes, like along the edges and stuff like that if you want to. Or as I say, you can carry on with the sponge, or you can simply spray the colours on if you wanted to. Depends what you want. But obviously we do a lot of, people do a lot of DIY with our professional products. So we're trying to show you in a DIY format how this is actually carried out with somebody at home that doesn't obviously have spraying facilities and compressors and things like that. You can see the colour going on there now is pretty good, and it's all colour changing quite nicely, so it's going to be great. So hopefully we'll get away with just the one coat of paint on here. But we're just stippling this on as we go in. Not too particularly bothered about the internal sides here, as we say, because these aren't actually seen. So we don't have to worry too much about those to be absolutely 100% covered. As long as it's shadowing through on those particular areas, that is absolutely perfectly fine, because they're not seen, as I say, because the steering column goes in there and they're not actually seen. It's almost, where do you start and stop with them, because there's so many little intricate little areas. It's you're almost like going backwards and forwards doing things. But that's the reality of what it is to change the colour of this dashboard. I think it's from a Volvo, to be fair. It's just a matter of getting into all these little areas on the underside here, where you've got like nuts and bolts and things going in, just to make sure that if anything sort of shows through, it shadows the colour through rather than the actual black itself coming through. So get right underneath everything and get into all these little areas as best as you possibly can, right up into here. And we're just going to carry on stippling now and going right over the whole thing. So this is the dashboard again. What we did here with the DIY solution was we put a second coating on, and that was ready then obviously for all the lacquering process to begin on it. So what we're going to now do is show you what we would do if we were spraying this on and this was somebody that was a technician in a workshop or somebody at home with a spray gun, all you would do is rather than put the 2 sponge coats on, you would stipple the first coat on and then you would proceed to spray. So what we're going to do now is to show you how to do that spraying process, even though we've got 2 coats on, but just pretend there's only 1 coat on there and we're putting the spray coat on. So what we've obviously done now is we've masked up a lot more of the area. As you can sort of see, we've masked up everything all the way around so that we've got all the lacquer covered, and we can obviously get on with spraying the next sort of layer on there, so that we can show you exactly how to do that with a spray coat and how that's done. But I mean, with the 2 sponge coats, it's looking absolutely brilliant. Everything's covered, you know, and it's all looking, you know, like original again. So we're just going to get the spray coat going on there now.
Just slightly.
So what I'm doing first of all is I'm just trying to sort of spray around all these particular areas here to get all the coating going into those. And then I'm going to carry on spraying the main area of the dashboard. This area isn't seen, but we're just putting another coat on there because it just finishes it off. So where we stippled it on, you can still see through the colour. Not that it's heat seamed, but I'm just doing it because that brings it back to OEM standard. And that is how you do the actual spraying process. So you would sponge your 1 coat on. We've put obviously the grey primer coat on there, dried that with the hairdryer, put on the 1 sponge coat of this sort of ivory colour, and then you would spray your paint on after that. If it's a DIY job at home, you would obviously put on your grey primer and then sponge on 2 coats of this ivory colour, drying between everything that you're doing. So you dry between the grey primer, dry between the 1 sponge coat of the ivory, and then dry the 2nd coating, and that would be sufficient for your colour change of this dashboard. Right, so we've obviously carried out all the stages as you've seen in the video. So the next stage is to obviously apply the lacquer. And I'm just going to apply the lacquer on a small section because you'll get the picture of what we mean. You know, you're just going to do the whole thing. So I'm not going to go through with this video and show you the whole thing with the end of the video, but we're just going to do a small section with the lacquer so that you understand it. But then I'm going to do a small section once we've done it all over, and then I'm going to spray a coating on for the technician side of it, where you're in a workshop for speed and you haven't actually got a spraying facility so that you can see how that we would spray the lacquer on, because it's slightly different to spraying the actual paint on that we sprayed on. So again, sponge, lacquer, simply on, and you can just literally dab that over the surface like so. Don't worry about the bubbles, they will disperse. It's just quite natural because it's a lot thinner than paint, so you're creating like air trapment and stuff like that, but they will just naturally disperse out the way, so it's not a problem. You can just wipe this in like this if you wanted to, but you still need to stipple it to make sure you've pushed it into the grain. So just gently go over the whole surface like so. It's pointless showing you this right the way through because it's not going to really change its appearance, because it's a matte lacquer that's going on here and it's a matte finish paint. It's not like putting the paint on like we did when we changed the colour from the black to this sort of ivory colour. So it just sort of gets you the idea of what we're doing, and we're just going to do this small section. But you would do this 2 or 3 times. So you'd do the whole dashboard, dry it, and then do it another 2 or 3 times. And that's all you're going to do, is literally just go over the whole surface like that, over the whole dashboard. And as you can see, the bubbles are dispersing. And if you do end up with 1 or 2 bubbles on the surface like you've got here, all you've got to do is just simply go over it again like that and just pop the bubbles and they're gone, as you can clearly see. So it's quite a simple sort of process, and you're just going to carry on doing that over the whole thing. It's that easy really. And then the next stage, what we're going to do, as I say, is going to be the actual spraying stage. But as you can clearly see, we're just going over, applying the lacquer as we did do the paint, just stippling that on. And if it goes frothy, as I say, don't worry about it. It's quite natural, this frothiness that you see here. I try to get it to go really frothy, like you see here. It's quite natural as that. You can see a little bit of frothiness just here as well. You just touch that with your sponge and, it all sort of disappears, as you can see. And it will just it's just air trapment is all you've got there, and it'll just disperse. You can do it with the hairdryer on a very low speed just to pop the bubbles, but as you can see, now that's gone. And that's all you're going to do with your lacquer. And we're just going to continue through the whole of this dashboard all the way through to the whole thing is actually sealed over with the lacquer. We're going to dry it, we're then going to do that process again, dry it, and then do that process again and put a nice good sort of 3 coatings of the lacquer onto this dashboard. Right, so now we're going to show you the spraying stage. We've gone through and we've sponged on the 3 coats by hand, which is the DIY solution side of it. But now for the technician side, if you're in a environment, or if you've got a facility to spray at your home or workshop, then obviously you would spray. It's purely and simply you'll spray for speed. But we show you the both methods so that you've got the DIY side and then you've got the spraying side. So again, we've got to start off by spraying the side here. You're going to simply just spray in, and you just want to move a little bit faster than what you do with the paint, because obviously the lacquer is a lot thinner. I'm just going to turn the actual pressure down so there's not so much lacquer coming out, and you can still see it's coming out there. And we're just going to simply go around and spray the whole of that dashboard. And we've chosen a matte finish lacquer here again. And what you don't want is the lacquer to go obviously running. So you're just going to simply spray that through so it's all sprayed. And again, obviously, with that you can spray on 2 or 3 coats of lacquer, drying each coat of lacquer as you're going. And the job would be done. So I mean, it is literally as simple as that, and that is the restoration and colour change of this dashboard. And the next stage that we would do is just to apply another 2 coats of lacquer by spray. Exactly the same as doing it by hand. We're sponging it on 3 coats by sponge or 3 coats by spray gun. Very, very simple. It's as easy as that. I hope you've enjoyed the video of transforming this dashboard from black into this ivory colour. Thank you very much.